City of Orillia, His Worship Steve Clarke, the Mayor of Orillia. Steve and his wife, Chris, have lived in Orillia and operated their businesses for 28 years. They've raised 4 children, Joel, Jenna, Josh, and Jacoby, and now the next generation begins with Audrey and Quinn.
Steve has a strong appreciation for the heritage and cultural character of Orillia. He even named his business Brewery Bay after the picturesque spot on Lake Couchiching where Stephen Leacock spent his summers.
Stephen has a lengthy track record of active support for the Orillia community. He was a community sports coach for over 17 years and supported numerous community causes and charities.
In recognition of his community service, Steve was awarded the Rotary Club's Paul Harris Award. The Orillia and District Chamber of Commerce has also recognized his work with the Strengthening Our Community Award and the Hats Off Award. Steve was named Business Leader of the Year with his wife, Chris, as well as Citizen of the Year.
Welcome His Worship, Steve Clarke, Mayor of Orillia. I wanted to give that little sound effect.
Thanks. I don't know, that person you just described sounds a lot older than I am. But thanks very much for that introduction. And Mark, thanks for the presentation. As mentioned, yes, I am the mayor of the Sunshine City, and very proudly so. Just about wrapping up my 7th year, and as also mentioned, a business owner within the community for almost 29 years, and my daughter now has a fairly robust business in the core of the city as well. So certainly vested in the community, and the one question I have for everybody also is what is this pandemic everybody speaks of? Of course, that's with tongue firmly planted in the cheek. I can't imagine every single day for the last year and a half that all of our lives haven't been touched by the pandemic in some way, shape, or form, whether you're politically involved or in business or even just a citizen. Of course, and in the last year and a half, I've been involved in almost 400 emergency management meetings. We've done 60 videos, updates, or educational videos, whatever you wish to call them, largely around health and safety issues, but also around in videos to support the local economy and local businesses. So the province announced the state of emergency on I think it began to St. Paddy's Day, March 17th. 2020, 3 days later, we declared within the city, within 2 weeks of that, we asked a member of council, Ted Eamon, to fire up and chair an emergency emergency recovery task force, and with a couple other members of council and staff and some key business or partner stakeholders within the community, including the Chamber of Commerce and Alan, who is with us tonight. And I'm glad to see Alan as part of the panel. Also, the Community Development Corporation and our local BIA, affectionately known as the Downtown Orillia Management Board. Council saw fit to put $100,000 on the table for not-for-profit organizations, lead social service delivery organizations at the beginning of the pandemic who may have found themselves short. And we also put $1 million aside for economic recovery, and that is, of course, what has resourced a lot of the initiatives taken by the ERTF. And make no mistake about it, health and safety in our community all the way along has been a #1 priority. And of course, that can, in some people's eyes, create a conflict between the vitality of a business and, of course, the health and safety of a community. And I will commend Alan and his team, and I know Alan's with us tonight, because the Chamber of Commerce, of course, is the one of the most significant business voices in the community. But the Chamber also did a wonderful job of striking that balance between health and safety and keeping helping to keep our businesses afloat. And certainly, what is best for our local economy, I think, by all accounts, is to get out of this pandemic as soon as possible so they can get back to business as relatively normal as it was before, although I think we would all admit that business is going to be somewhat different going forward. Some of the measures put in place by the city for businesses through our ERTF, the Recovery Task Force. We consulted with many different sectors, to find out what their needs were. We certainly had a robust shop local campaign, as Alan did with the Chamber of Commerce. We had a See You on the Patio program, which was a way of cutting through some of the red tape that people would have to go through on an annual basis to normally put a patio in public spaces or even in certain private spaces. And that was throughout the whole city. We had a really interesting campaign called the 20-Minute Grant Challenge. We discovered that a lot of people within our community were not applying for the provincial grant. So we had an educational webinar on how to do that. And we had a significant spike in uptake or in the filling out of the applications for the provincial assistance. We had free transits. We put free parking in the core of the city. We designated areas for curbside pickup, and we allowed people to defer their property taxes as some of the other things. And certainly we have and will continue to lobby the province and the federal government for continued support for our businesses. Our bylaw staff, or our municipal law enforcement officers, also played a significant role. Certainly they were charged or tasked with helping to apply the measures or restrictions brought in by our medical officers of health in the province. And they did that. It wasn't always fun, but they did do that. But one of the important reasons for doing that was to make sure that we were creating an even playing field. We did not want businesses within one sector to have significant competitive edge over other businesses. So as I say, not easy, but it was certainly something that we did. Another measure that we brought in that was quite frankly tough to do, and I know I spoke with Mayor Saunderson about this, and Mayor Dolan in Innisfil, and Mayor Lehman in Barrie, and two other members of the panel tonight, Mayor Hughes and Mayor Burkett. We brought in restrictions that are on parking in our waterfront. Our waterfront is absolutely robust in our summer months, but we were facing situations where we had uncontrollable numbers and uncontrollable behavior, and some of it was irresponsible behavior. So we put significant restrictions in place. Weren't always popular for that, but working with Mayor Burkett and Mayor Hughes and the other Mayor Clarke and the Chief of RAMA, at least for this past season, we were able to include our surrounding neighbors in allowing them to park in our waterfront. So not easy, but something that we certainly had to do. And that was also one of those things that was in conflict in some ways with local businesses. Although it kept our community safer, and by all accounts it did, I'm quite sure, and Alan will probably echo the same thing, that it did cost, I know it cost our Chamber of Commerce and Business because our boating business was slower, but also some of our local businesses. And I know I don't want to take all Alan's steam, but I will say the partnership with the Chamber of Commerce has been terrific since the minute that declaration was made, and they have done things that found a local supply of PPE and had that available for businesses in the community, and certainly led a campaign to distribute rapid testing for businesses so that they could test their employees and make sure they could still stay open. Certainly see a number of issues going forward. Some of these did exist before the campaign, and some of them have been exacerbated since the beginning of the campaign. Housing, as I'm sure most of the people around the screen are aware, has gone from being an issue before the pandemic to being an absolute crisis in all urban centers, and I think also in a number of rural centers as well, or rural areas. And of course, that all the affordability of housing can affect the economic health and well-being of those that we employ in our businesses. Certainly, our businesses are going to continue to struggle for a while as they continue to crawl out of the negative cash flow situation they may still find themselves in. Staffing, the question I have is, where have all our workers gone? It's one interesting issue. It's across many sectors: transportation, construction, healthcare, hospitality, and even our municipal sector is experiencing a shortage of staff. Certainly a number of people have changed careers since the beginning of the campaign. They had a moment of truth, I suppose, where they decided to take advantage of the opportunity. And I know in August alone, 180,000 Canadians changed not just jobs, they changed careers. Certainly the CERB, the payment from the federal government allowed some people a little more flexibility and maybe changed their jobs or left their jobs. And certainly many people have retired. It's certainly in certain sectors, certainly healthcare would be probably first and foremost. So a lot of sectors finding themselves short on quality employees. We continue to see a struggle with supply chain issues. And certainly, as anybody in politics in this call will know, add to a pandemic, a hurricane in Texas last year, and as an example of a supply chain issue, almost every municipality in Ontario had issues getting paint for our roads. And we were not even able to put lines in our roads until this past July. The other issue, I think, on the horizon, we've heard about our inflation rate in the last number of days. I think the federal government's only going to be able to withstand those kind of numbers so very long, for so long rather. And of course, interest rates are probably going to start climbing, and which will not be good news for many businesses as well. Having said that little doom and gloom scenario, I do believe the future is bright. I think it may take us a while to fully realize that. Minister McNaughton, the Minister of Labour today, I thought made a terrific announcement. I think long overdue, as he admitted today. The province is going to start recognizing foreign credentials in many situations for professionals and for trades. I do think the province also needs to even go further with our trades and sent people in one way or another, one way, shape, or form to get involved in the trades, because that's going to become a crisis if it isn't already, and I suggest it probably is. And I also believe to be competitive, Mark calls himself a 50-year-old millennial. I believe that the millennial demographic, which is absolutely significant, has a different set of expectations than perhaps people did in my generation. And businesses are going to have to be competitive. Certainly, they're going to have to pay a significant dollar. They have to contemplate what the work week looks like. I think there's a lot of expectation now that 3 days a week is going to become the norm. And certainly, if you are in business or you're an employer and you don't, and you have a business that can offer work from home and you don't, you're going to be less competitive than many other businesses. And I'll throw in there as an example Nordia, which is a very good call center we've had in Orillia for quite a number of years. Roughly 300 employees. They got a hold of my office about 2 years ago and said, Mr. Mayor, it's been a nice run, but we're going to consolidate our operations and we're going to take the people in Orillia and put those jobs in other centers in Ontario and beyond. The pandemic hit the Philippines, and they called me back and said, well, we actually need to keep the operation open a while longer because we had to shut down part of our operation in the Philippines. What happened? So then, of course, the pandemic ended up in Ontario, as we all know. And then they discovered that they had to ship people to their houses and to their homes rather to operate from home. They have since realized that that's a great working model. And so the good news in that scenario is that we were able to save about 300 jobs, and people are still in the area, though almost exclusively working from home. And locally, I will tell you, I'm sure Mayor Bifolchi and Mayor Saunderson in our urban centers and the other mayors that I meet with on a regular basis, which includes Mayor Hughes and Mayor Briquette, that the local economy, the interest in the local area is phenomenal, whether it's residential for housing, whether it's housing starts. Our building permits have been a record year after year for about 5 years in a row. Our employment land is getting swallowed up. We did a major deal with Hydro One, and they now are opening their provincial operations center in the next couple of months in Orillia, and that will provide, and then a provincial warehouse and a local operations center as well, a control center, which will provide great jobs for a long time. Because one of the things we have to continue to work on in Orillia is what I would describe as a relatively low average family income. And tied in with that, and tied in with downtown vibrancy, we have 10 acres right between our beautiful waterfront and our heritage downtown that we're just about to complete an RFP process with and with a developer that Collingwood is very familiar with Fram, and that will bring many more residents living in our downtown area, and certainly a number of businesses, and provide a number of customers for local businesses. Almost lastly, during the pandemic, I know as Mayor Byfolter was referencing a recreation center, we also opened up about a $55 million recreation center in the middle of the pandemic, and just now we're actually getting to the point where we're able to use it on a more normal basis. But I also believe that was the last piece of infrastructure that will make a mature small urban center. And very lastly, as I'm sure I've gone over time, just this week we've launched a campaign called the Be Kind campaign, where we want to recognize and encourage random acts of kindness within our community. And the tie-in with the business is this is a branded campaign, and we're going to be taking branding material and signage to these businesses, and also little rewards that these businesses can hand out to customers who exemplify this. Anyway, thank you very much. I probably sped talk because I knew I was restricted by time, and very glad to be a part of the procession. Thank you.